Hello, beautiful beings. What really started swirling around right before I made this video is, what is waking up? What does it look like? What is it? Waking up is, I almost said when the person wakes up, but it's not really the person waking up, because it's the being that seems to have got amnesia, and the being that has identified with this personal experience for so many lifetimes that it thinks that it's a person. And waking up is all of a sudden realizing it's just this no mind. It's just this quiet, pure, undiluted bliss place that we are. It's recognizing that again, but not just like, oh yeah, I see that silence. It's just as quick as turning my attention from one thought to another. That's how fast waking up is. The mind would definitely tell people that it's a lot more complicated than that, but any conversation that we have together is just this spontaneous, in the moment conversation, neither one of us having any idea what's going to be said, but it's a unraveling, an unwinding of the tightness, the tight grip that seems to, that the mind just seems to have a very tight grip on beings. A death grip, they're saying. It just would make it seem like, I felt like it was insurmountable so many times in my life to get away from just the agony of an active mind from maybe 20 seconds after I woke up in the morning. All day. I could just see it. I just felt like it was just, and just picking up speed all day long, every single day, absolute torture. I'm not saying I didn't have fun, or didn't feel love or any of that. That's not true. I did. But when it seems like your mind is actually really loud, and all the thoughts that are going around in it are really loud, and I didn't know how not to turn my attention to those thoughts, and I also didn't know how not to believe what my thoughts were saying, and besides the fact of just the activity of the thoughts, just the anxiety that produced, just the feeling of the activity of it, and the loudness. The worst part about it was, I used to call it spin out. When I would go into spin out, I would get upset about something. I would see something, a picture of something terrible. I would hear something terrible. I would get in a fallout with a friend that I had. Anything like that. To where, relationships, yeah, right? Or worrying about money. It was the repetitive thoughts, the worrying about one certain thing like money or relationship. I know I just said that, but those two things specifically, it was the most torture, because it just, it just goes round and round and round and round. It may be different scenarios, but it's all dead ends. It's all keeping the person in just this torture chamber. Yeah, a torture chamber. This is the torture chamber, but it's not really. When it's in its natural state, when the mind is in its natural state, it's blissful. It really is. Okay, so waking up, another amazing point that they have right now is, just because a being has woke up and has accessed the silence that we are, the present moment, it doesn't mean life is going to be smooth sailing. It doesn't mean that there won't be excessive mind activity. It just, because when a person wakes up, when a being, I'm just going to say person, you know what I mean? When a being wakes up and remembers they're not this person, that triggers, I believe that it's already been happening in a gradual process, but waking up, like the water's breaking when giving birth, that speeds up the process exponentially. I never get to use that word, but it's perfect in this situation. It speeds it up so much that the mind may seem even louder at times. However, but please don't let that scare you too much, because the difference between now and before I remembered is that there was nowhere to hide from my mind. I didn't know how to get away from those thoughts. I didn't know where. I didn't even know that I could turn my attention away from thoughts. And if I did know, where would I turn it to? What I was used to doing for many years is, I later realized, was cognitive therapy. I would replace bad thoughts with good thoughts, and that would bring me relief. But it's not a permanent solution, but it does help. So now, though, since that day that I woke up with Muji and the mental activity completely collapsed, and it was nothing but blissful silence for 3 days. I was in my natural state for 3 days. Yes, they're reminding me we are actually never in our natural state because we're having this human experience. So there will always be this subtle tension that doesn't ever go away. Life force, they're saying. It's that tension of life force and just having this experience. So I used to try to get rid of that. I wanted to just, and when I'm just immersed in the present moment, just in my natural state, I'm not thinking about any of that, any tension at all. So, I guess it's not always there, is it? So here's where continuing to hold satsang with an awakened being, here's where that comes in. So it's almost imperative, I would say. And there are other awakened beings, like if you want to talk to me about this, and I don't resonate with you, I'm not your cup of tea, I annoy you for some reason, that happens. Not everybody resonates with each other. I can absolutely point you to others that will. There's so many. Tons of awakened beings that have helped me, but there are plenty that I could point you in the right direction towards that could absolutely wake you up in a split second. Eckhart Tolle is, even though I woke up with Muji, Eckhart Tolle, I believe, he just has the most simplistic way of helping a person, guiding a person through this life in any situation. Absolutely amazing. So beautiful. I've been listening to him for over 10 years. And the first morning that Muji came to me and I listened to Muji, my second video, the first one was very short. I felt something was happening. I didn't know what. I didn't even know what waking up was. I just knew that I realized 3 days before Muji came to me that replacing bad thoughts with good thoughts would never be a solution for me. I would always have to go through spin out. And it was so physically painful. I felt disabled because of my mind for a really long time. But I was really good at faking that I didn't feel insane. Because I was raising my girls, I couldn't take the chance of anybody knowing. Of course it leaked out. I was very emotional and I cried a lot. But I wasn't a rager, I wasn't an angry person. I just felt very sad and pretty depressed. But, I had my girls to keep going for, and I swear, they saved my life. I knew they did, because I would never leave them, no matter how loud my mind got. If I didn't have children, I may have checked out because it was that agonizing. And if you're watching this video, then it's resonating, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And people get down on people for, I know this may seem a little depressing, but I'll just touch on it for a second. People may really look down on people that take their own life But a person that does that, they're not in anywhere near their natural state of being. They are tortured by really, really, really bad thoughts on a daily basis that they think are real, that they believe. So, there is hope. I just didn't know that it was possible to feel this peaceful, but it absolutely is. So I'll spend the rest of my days on this planet, which is 50 years. Absolutely 50 years. If you've been following me at all, I know I'm going to say it so many more times, but when my grandmother passed away, when she dropped her physical form when I was 5, she came to me and told me that I would live to be 105 years old. I never forgot that. I mean, how could you? So I'm just devoting the rest of my life to helping other beings wake up, because it's obviously possible. So, the mind, just the vitalness of holding satsang, continuing to have conversations before and after awakening. After awakening, it's still very, very crucial, because the mind burns off. What's not necessary anymore comes up to burn off. And it can be incredibly confusing and terrifying. If the scariest part of this whole shedding, burning process since I woke up with Muji, May 6th, 2013, the scariest time out of all of it, being homeless, living with crazy people, all of it, was on the very first day, no, the second day that I was awake. I woke up that morning and I thought I'd lost it. It's already who we are, so we can't really lose it, but that's the great illusion. That's the illusion, that we could actually lose who we are. We could actually forget. So I woke up, and I can't even describe to you how terrifying it was. That I had found utopia, heaven, and then I lost it, and I didn't know where to find it. So, of course, I got Muji back on the line, the emergency hotline, hit the first video that came up, and within moments, he had brought me back. I point here because this is where I can feel it the most in my physical form. Just this silent expansiveness. And he brought me right back there, and I was just like, oh my gosh. It was almost more delicious that second day getting it back, than it was getting it the first time that I remembered. And so the practice has been, and I'm emotional right now just because of this pure undiluted joy that is going through my body. And, it's taken some years of practice. I would have been full on sobbing right now, but I'm not suppressing. It's just there's just so much joy from what I'm telling you coming through that it just makes me sob. The fact that I'm the one that gets to tell you too, I'm just like, wow, why did I get to wake up? Well, I was really desperate. I had the gift of desperation for a really long time. So I keep going back to this one. So, the gift of holding satsang before and after, but after, when it gets really scary, if a person has accessed their true nature and then loses it, just holding satsang, especially if we're talking. Videos are obviously absolutely amazing. That's how I woke up. However, it's if you have the opportunity to actually talk to somebody, it would speed it up even more, that shedding process, because the practice is, before and after awakening, is to go from person to presence. From person to presence, because we've all been so used to, for lifetimes, going from person mode. It takes some practice. They're showing me different scenarios. It takes some practice to feel like this is natural. This is natural. They've showed me so many examples right now. From going from stick shift to automatic. They were all just flying through there. So it just takes practice. That's all there is. It's to learn anything new. Love you so much.